Hello and welcome to Jason and Jeremy John About Justice League. I'm Jason.
And I'm Jeremy.
Oh, I love that. He did a dramatic pause. This is the podcast, everybody, where two friends who are also nerds talk about each episode of Justice League, the animated series. We give you our thoughts, insights, and a lot of nerdy tangents on a cartoon about DC superheroes. And if you want to support this podcast or submit questions for us to answer live on the air, head on over to patreon.com/Jawiin. That's Jawiin. So like the question that's going to be answered in this first episode of Justice League, of who is the Justice League, Jeremy, I think we need to say to the people who we are, because they might be coming to this blind. They might not have any clue who we are.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair.
Wasn't it really a question? That's unfair of me to put you on the spot for that one. I'm sorry.
I agree.
I will say, everybody out there, if you're listening to this podcast, it's probably because you've maybe heard me on another podcast, most famously Geek History Lesson, that I co-host with the amazing Ashley Victoria Robinson. You might also have recognized my face from DCL Access. I hosted the official DC Comics YouTube show for about 2.5 years. And for the last 2 years, I've been working in a writer's room on a CBS television show, one that I can't talk about. But those are a little bit my bona fides, and I've always been a big nerd, and I've loved especially the DC Comics universe for a very, very long time, and it's led me to even write comic books myself. So if you're wondering who is this loudmouth, I don't know. Those are bona fides, right? I don't know what I'm trying to...
100%.
I don't know who I'm trying to...
You're qualified.
I don't know who I'm trying to... What invisible judge I'm trying to prove my worth to.
Yeah, I feel like these people are mostly your people anyway. I feel like I'm the one who's got some proving to do.
Well, I will tell you, Jeremy, let's talk about a little bit of your bona fides. Like, you have one of the most astounding DC Comics action figure collections I have ever seen, that I've ever known about. I love seeing pictures of it and stuff like that. And when did you first start reading DC Comics?
So the first DC comic I ever read was The Death of Superman.
Oh, same. Well, no, not same.
Like
that was the one that got me into it.
Yes,
same but not.
And I wasn't reading those like weekly as that happened. I got the graphic novel for Christmas the year that it was released.
Who gave it to you?
So,
for Christmas?
My parents.
Oh,
my
good.
parents gave it to me. But that was really only a part of it. I would say a larger part of my formative comic book experience was the Batman 66 TV show.
Oh, yeah.
That aired on Nick at Night. I watched the reruns of that when I was very little, and that fostered my love for Batman. And then shortly after I started watching that, the animated series premiered. So those three things were
Batman, the animated series, you mean?
My linchpin. Batman, the animated series.
Okay.
Yes, correct. So those three things are kind of the linchpin to my DC experience.
Do you mind, Jeremy, if we reveal your rock music legacy history here? Can we talk a little bit about your connection to rock music?
I mean, rock is maybe a strong word.
Okay, Red Dirt, rock country.
Yeah, my dad is one of the so-called godfathers of Red Dirt music.
Yes, that's some bona fides.
I mean, not in terms of Justice League, but absolutely.
There's a lot of Red Dirt in this episode, though, Jeremy.
There is a whole lot of Red Dirt in this episode, and I didn't even come at it from that angle.
Right at the beginning of episode 1, should we start a Red Dirt segment? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there, everybody.
We shouldn't.
We shouldn't.
But if you're interested in learning about Red Dirt, reach out to me online. I will direct you to some Red Dirt podcasts done by people I know that are really great. So
Jeremy, we should probably tell the story about why the two of us, like how did we meet? Why the two of us? Why are we talking about Justice League? Two J-named idiots.
Well, I'll tell it from my perspective. So I was going to the University of Tulsa, which I'm very happy I did, even though it was a mistake for me on a lot of levels. I shouldn't have done it. I went there for a year and I dropped out and moved away, and you, I guess, had started attending TU right after I left, like the semester after I left. And you kind of replaced me in our friend group.
Yeah, so we should explain that because we had a group of 4 guys. It was
Yeah.
But at the time it was 3, and then like I guess I didn't when I started talking to the other 2 gentlemen, I had no idea that there was a Mr. Jeremy Skinner out there.
Yeah. And you were explicitly, I was told about you beforehand and like, oh yeah, he's the new you since you left.
Man, I never knew that. Those guys, that's rough.
Yeah. So I was very like apprehensive about meeting you. I was threatened by you before I ever laid eyes on you.
So
and
we have a Batman Superman relationship.
we kind of do. And because guess what? I don't talk to either of those dudes anymore, and you're still my best friend.
I don't either.
That worked out.
I don't either. I see one of them on Instagram every once in a while. So yes, we have a long friendship. I'm sorry, Batman. I didn't know about this. I mean, obviously you're Batman. There's no way.
Oh, I'm fine. I'll take it. I'm honored. Thank you. You're obviously Superman.
Yeah,
there's no question.
There's just no way around it. I'm too nice. I don't know. I'm like, I kind of feel like I'm like the Zack Snyder Superman more than I am the DC Comics Superman. And the reason why I say that is because when Zack Snyder Superman is very nice, he's very nice. But when he gets mad, he explodes. Like, so that's what I feel. That's the kind of Superman. Let's not go too far into that.
Yeah, let's not.
Let's stay away from that.
You're Christopher Reeve, buddy. I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Well, maybe I'm misjudged. Now I understand the reaction because we're also looking at each other over Zoom, and the reaction on Jeremy's face was way more shocking than I thought it would be. Okay. Jeremy, let me ask you this. This is a Justice League podcast. Do you remember the first Justice League comic book you read, or do you remember the first Justice League run that like really impressed you, or where's your connection to Justice League in the comic books?
Yeah, so I actually the first Justice League comic that I read would have been during the airing of this show.
Oh, interesting.
So I liked comics and superhero culture as a kid, and then kind of got away from it a little bit. And then as an adult, in the time period after I left TU, when I was away for a year, that's when I started watching this show. It was during the Cadmus arc of Justice League Unlimited.
Season 3?
We will get to. I think it's considered season 1 of Unlimited.
To me, they're the same show. We can have that argument. Well, I bet we will have the argument before this podcast is over. But
I mean, there's so many different ways that you could I mean, I tend to look at it as all one big show. And
I do too.
Would call the Cadmus arc season 4 is how I would consider it.
Oh, interesting.
Because it's the last one before the
so
Legion of Supervillains arc.
So this show specifically drove you to Justice League comic books, which is cool. Do you remember the run, or do you remember who was working on it at the time?
So at the time when I started watching it was Infinite Crisis was getting ready to happen. It was the build up to Infinite Crisis. That's where I jumped on and like became current with DC Comics. But I am ashamed to admit I torrented a whole bunch of books
at
the time.
As long as you don't do it now.
I was a poor young person.
Yeah,
I don't do it anymore. I don't do any kind of piracy of any kind anymore. But I did torrent basically every Flash comic from 1985 to 2005.
Would have been a big file.
It was, and I read all of them, and it was great. I also read Grant Morrison's Justice League run. I would say that's
the JLA run.
Yes, that's my team, like up through Superman Blue. Like
that is the same for me. Because at the time I was reading Wizard Magazine, which is this classic magazine of the 90s that talked about comic books, interviewed these creators, and they did a specific special issue, a JLA issue, talking about Grant Morrison's Justice League. And it impressed me. I loved the art. It also had Kyle Rayner, Green Lantern, who I'm a huge fan of. And I was in like Flynn. And I actually subscribed to that comic book because I was reading it in the late 90s. And at the time, no comic book shops anywhere near me. So I would get all these folded, bent over, torn apart issues of Justice League, but I still devoured them. And I also was kind of delayed with my JLA reading because when I got that special, I was very excited to get issue number 1. But because I was in the middle of I grew up in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, the subscription didn't, or the because I actually put a $20 bill in an envelope and sent it to DC Comics. Like, give me my JLA. And by the time they got that with a stamp on there, yeah, man, my parents wouldn't let me write checks. Anyways, by the time DC Comics got that and was able to be like, give this kid a subscription, I got issue 7.
7 months.
It took 7 months in the turnaround time for me to get that. And
this has been your ad for Digital First.
Yes, we love brick and mortar stores. We love it. It's okay.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. But yes, I have real, because of that JLA run. That run is like really informed a lot of my perspective in the DC universe. So when this cartoon finally happened in 2001. It was catnip for me. It was perfection for me. It was exactly what I was looking for because I had already absorbed all the Grant Morrison Justice League. It's interesting, Jeremy, we should talk about this. The next question I was going to ask you is why we decided to do this podcast and why a Justice League podcast. And it just dawned on me, we really haven't talked about this too much, but at the time we were recording this episode, because you could be listening to this far, far into the future, several years down the road. We don't know. Hello, future people. This is the 20th anniversary of the cartoon. Mm-hmm. We are recording
coming up later this year.
We unconsciously started celebrating this 20 years later, which is kind of crazy. But
it really is.
Why did we decide to do this podcast? Why Justice League, Jeremy?
Well, I mean, for me personally, Justice League is never far from my mind. Because, like
or
I said,
your heart.
Or my heart. Like I said, the Grant Morrison run is my favorite preferred comic version, but this show is what drew me back into comics. So in a very real sense, this is my Justice League. But are you getting at what we were thinking about doing instead? Of this podcast?
There are no wrong answers, Jeremy. There are no wrong answers. Conversation is conversation. We should reveal that. I loved your anecdote. We talked. Jeremy and I have talked about doing a podcast for quite a while, and we originally were going to do a Star Trek podcast. And when I think we were actually like moving towards, okay, here's the reality of doing it. Like, let's make sure we can record. Let's make sure we can do all this stuff like that. Star Trek immediately became very unappealing, and I don't know why, but it was on a walk that I was doing one night, and it just popped into my head and was like, why not a Justice League podcast? And weirdly about that, I have not seen these episodes for about 20 years since they aired. Because I don't think I saw this. I did not see this cartoon in 2001. I think I saw Justice League not until like 2006, 2007. The show was off the air when I finally saw it.
Probably would have been around the time that we had met because I had gotten all of them saved on my hard drive and was watching them constantly.
I think I saw them on the DVDs but to be honest with you, I have not seen them in over 10 years. So I'm kind of coming to this show I forgot a lot of this pilot. So yeah, that is basically a lot of the reasons why we decided to do this podcast. And I promise you, listeners, we won't go this long every time. It's the first episode. That's why we got to open it up. We got to be wide. And let's get into this. Jeremy, let's talk about what is today's episode.
Today's episode is Secret Origins Part 1. Originally aired November 17th, 2001. Synopsis. Superman and Batman team up to deal with an alien invasion, and a telepathic message leads the duo to a military base housing future ally John Jones. Secret Origins is the series premiere of Justice League. It originally aired as a full-length 3-part movie, but streaming and reruns divide the episode into 3 parts, so that's how we will be discussing it.
That is correct. And before we get into the main episode discussion, we have to answer questions from the Super Friends. Yeah, that's right. We have some questions from our Patreon, and I know you're like, what? How could you have that question on episode 1? Well, we asked the Patreon early, and they delivered. So, Jeremy, we have a question from David A. Skelton, who says, Jeremy, can you tell us a Jason story? And I feel like that's what we've been doing so far. But I was going to ask you, actually, do you have one that relates to Justice League specifically somehow? Or is that possible, Jeremy?
Less to Justice League specifically, but more to like, I think a foundational thing in our friendship.
Sure.
So, is the day that we took a road trip to go to the action figure and toy museum in Pauls Valley, Oklahoma.
I was going to ask you what the town was. I could not remember it. That was a fun day.
It was a really fun day. Yeah. And it was just, and clearly, you know, that has inspired a lot in my life because this was a guy who just had a toy collection and basically turned this retail space in downtown Pauls Valley, Oklahoma into a recreation of his childhood home on the inside and filled absolutely every room with action figures and dioramas. And
there are more action figures in there
than slowly trying to do that.
Oh, boy.
Ever since.
There are more action figures than you think in that, everybody. Like, it is unbelievable. You can Google pictures. Jeremy, do you know, is it still open?
I don't know if it's still open.
Has it been able to survive
the
Roni?
I don't know. I should look into it though, because it's absolutely worth a day trip down there.
Well, I was going to say, like,
that's exactly what we did. We took a fun trip down there, and I feel like that's we definitely bought things in the gift shop. I remember.
I think we did because I think it was just leftover action figures. I don't.
Yep.
Let me ask.
And there was a lot of Justice League merchandise from this show there too.
There was. Let me ask you this. Should the goal of this podcast, because, you know, if there are 100 episodes of Justice League, 90 episodes, 80 episodes of Justice League, somewhere in there. By the end of the 80 episodes, is the goal that you will have your own action figure museum? Can that be the arc of this podcast?
So this podcast is but a blip on my lifelong arc of becoming that.
Would you start?
It's going to take me a lot longer.
Oh, okay. I was going to say start that museum in Tulsa as well. Don't do it in Mills Valley or Pauls Valley or whatever that place is.
Oh no, never in a million years. No. This will still. I think this has to be a house level thing for at least the next 5 years before I could get it off the ground.
All right, got it. Well, there you go, David A. Skelton. Thank you for the question. I hope it answers it. All right, Jeremy, let's move to this week in Justice League history. It's the week of November 17th, 2001. What was happening that week, Jeremy?
In America, the number one song that week was Family Affair by Mary J. Blige.
I don't know
the number one movie. You say you don't know it?
I don't know it. Don't play it.
I'm not familiar either.
Don't play
honestly.
it. I don't think we can play it. I don't think it's legal to play it. Let's move on, Jeremy.
I don't have it queued up either way. And I will admit, this one I cheated slightly. The number one movie in the country, technically on November 17th, 2001, was Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Okay.
Because it opened the night before. The official box office totals didn't come in until the next day, but I looked at the day-by-day rankings, and it was the number one movie in America.
I think we can allow it.
Easily. Yeah. And then also happening on that day of note was the grand opening of the flagship Toys R Us store in Times Square that had a giant Superman statue and an indoor Ferris wheel. And one of the great regrets of my life is that it closed and I never got to go there.
So Toys R Us was aiming for a battle with FAO Schwartz, apparently.
So...
Because FAO Schwartz has that. Well, not on Times Square, but FAO Schwartz is on like Fifth Avenue.
Yeah. But they were owned by the same people by the time that opened.
Oh, okay.
I don't know who owned who, but they were. So one was a subsidiary of the other.
It didn't matter. All right, got it.
Didn't matter.
All right, now we're going to move into a segment we are going to call Star Trek versus Justice League. Because this podcast was really going to be a Star Trek podcast, we thought we'd chat about the one topic everyone needs to know about: who had the better episode that week, Star Trek or Justice League. So this week, Star Trek was airing the episode Star Trek Enterprise, that series starring Captain Jonathan Archer, the episode Civilization, Season 1, Episode 9. In that, the Enterprise investigates a pre-industrial civilization of about 500 million people. After Captain Archer, Commander Tucker, Ensign Sato, and Subcommander T'Pol arrive, they discover a local scientist who believes that a newly arrived merchant is causing a sickness in the town. Fun fact, the alien that is the newly arrived merchant that is causing the sickness is Wade Williams, who went to the University of Tulsa. So there's a weird connection to us in this podcast. Jeremy, did Star Trek beat Justice League this week? Without giving us too many details in the Justice League episode.
No.
I agree.
No, it didn't.
No, this episode is not that. I'm sorry, that episode of Star Trek is not great. It's a neat idea, but I think
I didn't hate it.
Justice League definitely trounced the Federation this week. 100%, yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right. You know,
although I will say it was nice to watch a episode that dealt with the ramifications of First Contact in a pre-Prime Directive world.
Yeah. And Justice League did a lot of punching. So I think we know.
A lot more punching.
There's so many explosions.
Way better action.
Lots of monsters, all kinds of things. Actually, everyone out there, I just want to say that if we could use sound effects for these and jingles, like a radio show, for every one of these segments. We have a lot of segments. Sorry. We just thought we were going to go crazy with the segments. We're going to make it happen. If you want to send us a segment, intro, or music, I'm just going to give you my info@jasoninman.com. There's better ones, but let's just go with that one. info@jasoninman.com. Just email it to my website. We'll get a Justice League pod email maybe one day. So, Jeremy, let's go to the next section of the podcast.
Who's Who in the DCAU. This is basically just where we talk about the people that made this episode behind the scenes.
Yes.
This episode was directed by Dan Reba. It was written by Rich Fogel, and I've chosen to spotlight Rich Fogel this week. He's an American television writer. On his lengthy resume are Super Friends, Smurfs, Yogi Bear, Flash Gordon, and Wildcats. Jason, I put that in there just for you.
Yeah,
he wrote on the Wildcats cartoon.
Oh, boy. That classic
Did
cartoon.
you watch that?
Wildcats? Yes, a lot.
I never watched it. I know virtually nothing about the Wildcats other than you love them.
You can find every episode on YouTube, sadly.
Well,
maybe
that's a follow-up podcast to this.
Wild about Wildcats. Oh, it was going to be rough. Yeah, they only air for one season on CBS. Yeah.
Well, then I'll get through it quick.
Who else is in the cast? Who's the cast of this episode?
All right, so we've got Kevin Conroy, of course, playing the iconic Batman, Susan Eisenberg as Wonder Woman, Carl Lumbly as John Jones, George Newbern as Superman, Michael Rosenbaum as the Flash and also as a protester, Gary Cole as J. Allen Carter, Jason Marsden as Snapper Carr, Susan Sullivan as Queen Hippolyta, Max Brooks as Howie, Corey Burton as the bald technician / doctor, Wanda Christine as the female technician / SCU officer, Clyde Kusatsu as Japanese ambassador, Phil Lamar as general and Ed Rice, and Kevin Michael Richardson as General Wells and SCU officer.
So, fun fact, I don't know if you know this, Jeremy, but usually I'm not certain which guild voice actors are under. I'm pretty certain that they're not under SAG, but most episodes, when they bring you in for a voice part, you actually always record 3 different voices. That's the reason why you hear Michael Rosenbaum as a protester. Every one of these, I mean, you'll hear George Newbern. Kevin Conroy is so many security guards across Batman the Animated Series and Justice League. But it's something about the Union to where they'll just get them to fill in those one-line parts because that doesn't violate the contract or something like that. I'm not a voice actor, which is why I don't know the details, but that is the reason why you'll constantly hear, Susan Eisenberg be 3 different. It's usually always 3. One of the most well-known ones to me is there is a security guard in Disney's Gargoyles who begins the pilot. And it is 100% Keith David, not really changing his voice at all. So then when you hear Goliath 5 minutes later, you're just like, hey, wait. So, all right. Now it's time to finally talk about what you all came here for, Justice League. All right, let's dive into episode 1 of Justice League, Jeremy, with the mission briefing.
All right. We open in the Mariner Valley of Mars as 2 astronauts are searching for water beneath the surface. Finding what they initially believed to be an ice crystal, they accidentally open a fissure that J. Allen Carter falls into. He finds some ancient Martian ruins and a giant door that's sealed shut. Then for some reason, he grabs a pickaxe and pries it open, only to be met by a blinding white light and what is presumably certain death. So, Jason, can we talk about how dumb these astronauts are for a second?
Yeah. I also remember thinking when I was watching this episode, that's a really big pickaxe. I was surprised that was NASA standard issue, because that was a huge pickaxe. But yes, I also want to talk about, it's a little weird to me because this is the teaser of the episode. Yeah, he's absorbed by the white light, and then we go right to opening credits. And as a writer, I'm a big fan of teasers have to matter, because in a world of streaming where you're, and it's funny, in a world of streaming where there aren't commercial breaks, you're still doing teasers in Act 1s and Act 2s and Act 3s and whatever. You just don't cut to commercial. But when you cut to opening credits, it is a clear signal to the audience that, oh, now we're starting. Now the episode begins. And I hate shows with weak teasers. And I don't think this is a weak teaser. Like, I think this is actually a pretty good teaser. But the problem of it is I'm watching a show called Justice League, and none of the Justice League, not even one of them, are in this teaser. Only strangers are. And even though we meet one of the astronauts later on down the line, it's not really him. So in actuality, all of the characters in this teaser never appear again in the rest of the episode. And that's strange to me.
And on top of that, I don't like either of these characters that I've just met for the first time. The first one, you know, whenever the real J. Allen Carter is like, oh man, look at that view. He's like, we're here to work. It's like, dude, you're standing on an alien planet. Enjoy yourself a little bit. Or at least, you know, don't be so bloodless where your colleague can't appreciate the view. But then also, I just think if you fall down a chasm and then somehow miraculously survive and then find a giant locked door with Martian writing on it.
Don't open
I'm
it.
just trying to get out of that cavern and make it back to Earth and let some archaeologists know. I'm not grabbing a pickaxe and prying it open and seeing what's inside.
Yeah. You know, when I was watching this, my first thought, because I forgot that this teaser is in Mars, my first thought was, we made it to Mars! I was so happy for, like, the world. I was like,
Suck it,
yeah!
Elon Musk. Yeah. We did it.
That's what I thought. I was so happy. I was like, science, yes! So hopeful. All right, we have to. There's no way we can talk about the first episode of Justice League without talking about the opening credits.
The iconic theme song.
Okay, first off, I'm not certain who wrote that theme song. I can tell you real quick.
Lolita Ritmanis, I think.
Yes. There is some great music, by the way, across. I have the soundtrack for this episode. I'm bringing it up in my iTunes library, so if you hear typing, I'm sorry. Oh, man, I just lost it. But there are some really, like, Justice League has some great music, and I adore this theme song. I think it's so good. Yeah, Lolita Ritmanis is the composer of this, the main first two seasons. I love it. I think it's epic. I think it's dramatic. I can remember vividly the first time seeing it and just being all in, being like, I am in. You've locked me for life show. It really does a good job setting the tone for the show. It seems so epic. Mm-hmm. Do you like? So I've heard this complaint before. I want to ask you. A lot of people don't like the first two season opening credits because of the low-res Justice League cartoony characters that are seen across it. What are your thoughts on this? The visuals.
My thoughts are Bruce Timm characters don't look good as 3D models.
Interesting.
Period. As much as I love the Green Lantern animated series, I don't think it looks that good. And I think that this opening credits falls into that same category. I'd have just rather seen a 2D animated thing with the same song, frankly. I get they wanted to do something different, but just for my personal taste, I think everybody looks abnormally clunky in the 3D rendering.
I fully admit that they look low res. They don't look great. But I like that it's stylized. I love this version more than, because I don't like what they do when they just become clip show. I hate opening credits that are clip shows. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them. So when they're just like, here's the Green Arrow clip, and here's this, and here's a push frame of a character that we cut out in Photoshop. At least for this, for me, I was like, yeah, we are setting the tone. I'm a big fan of these original opening credits, and I kind of hate when they go away. All right, so then there's a time jump. We go to Metropolis, right? And we got to talk about, so Batman and these scientists, right? He's been following these scientists around, and he's watching these scientists in the rafters. There's talks of a weird barbecue, and these scientists rip out a computer to get their secret alien tech. And my first thought was, you guys could have just put that in a locker. You could have just put it in the locker, or you're dead. Like, why did you have to bury it in the wall? Lacquer, like
hide a whole server in front of it.
Yeah, you're gonna have to rip out that wall every time you want to get to your alien tech, and that might just be an iPhone. And then it leads to a fight very, very quickly. Superman shows up, and Superman is giving Batman some sass here, which I want to play a clip from this because I thought
Please do.
I thought this was a lot of sass for Superman.
Need a hand? Thanks, but I can handle this.
They don't look so tough. They don't look so tough. That's a sassy Superman. What is up with you, dude? Is he having a bad night?
He's got a lot of undeserved sass in this episode, I think.
So, we're talking about Batman and Superman. It's great to start the episode with them because they are, the progenitors of this universe. They're the reason why Justice League exists because they both had 3-season, Batman had 4 seasons, Superman 3 animated series, to kick this all off. So I love that they're the first 2 heroes we see. But they both look slightly different. They're both a little bit redesigned. They don't look, neither one of them, Superman now has some lines on his chins. He looks, to me, a little bit older. Mm-hmm. And then Batman, he was in a completely black and gray outfit, and now he's in a black and blue, and his ears are taller. His ears are a little bit more Kelly Puckett. That's a very famous Batman artist. And you can definitely see the sort of purplish blue underneath his cape. I am not a fan of the Superman redesign. I'm a big fan of the Batman redesign. What are your thoughts on how they changed from their series, Jeremy?
Yeah, so I'm with you on Superman. I think they made Superman look too old. And they bailed out of it pretty fast. It's only this first season of Justice League before they go back to that original design. I don't mind the Batman design as much, but I gotta say my favorite Batman design is from the new Batman Adventures. I kind of wish they had just kept that style for Justice League personally.
Oh, interesting. See, I'm not a big fan of that design because the new Batman, is it the new Batman and Robin Adventures? How do you call it exactly?
I think it's just the new Batman Adventures.
See, I call that one Batman the Animated Series Season 4, too. I'm like, that's Season 4.
It is. That is what it is. Yes, you're right. You're not wrong.
I thought all the designs in that made them too simple. Like, to me, it looked like that they lost their budget. They lost their animation budget, and they were like, we need to make these characters as simple to animate as possible. So a lot of the characters just become 2 colors. And that's what Batman, and so to me, giving him the third color of the blue with blue highlights, it makes him pop. It makes him look better instead of flat. Yeah. And I also will say that we're going to talk a lot about that, future spoilers, listeners, with the Joker. Because the Joker in the Batman animated series Season 4, to me, I hate that design because he has just these beady black eyes and no lips. And I think
Agreed.
I think the Justice League redesign is fantastic. I think it is the best look of animated Joker. So yeah. So okay. So after we get to this place where they have a big fight, and I loved the Jimmy Olsen signal watch. I loved that we get a reference to that. I don't even remember if the signal watch was brought up in Superman the Animated Series. I couldn't even remember that. I don't know if it is.
I couldn't tell you. I watched it in the last year, but honestly, I don't remember if it ever came up or not. I got to tell you, though, that's not one of my favorite moments of the episode, though.
Why?
Well, just the way that Superman offers him the watch, and he says, like, call me when you need help or whatever, as if Batman isn't the one who just had to save Superman from that situation because he collapsed 7 seconds after showing up.
Okay.
But then also, too, Batman really seems like he's just accepting it to not be rude. When Superman hands it to him, he doesn't seem like he particularly wants or needs it that bad.
It's okay. So this is funny. And I think this is going to be a conversation that you and I are constantly going to have with this show, because I think very clearly, especially, and I didn't, this did not happen to me when I was reading the Grant Morrison Justice League, where, they're all superpowered and Batman's the only non-powered one. And this is the same deal here. Every member of the Justice League has superpowers. Batman's the one without superpowers. Mm-hmm. And this show, especially in rewatching these first 3 episodes, is a constant reminder of like, oh, Batman should not be in this fight. He is going to die. They are going to kill Batman. Or like every time Batman gets knocked out, I'm like, oh, he's dead. They killed him.
I think this show does that a lot. Like over the course of it, even too, really. It puts him in serious mortal danger.
It does, man. And I feel bad where, it's one of those, in the comic books, it's that idea where I love the idea that you're like, yeah, a normal human can be on that team of superpowered metahumans. But then when you see it in reality, you're like, oh, no, they can't. Nope.
You can't really hang. Well, and then, of course, it all builds to the moment in Justice League Unlimited whenever Batman is falling through the sky and saying, I need some air support as I can't fly. Like, now, please.
Spoilers, Jeremy. Spoilers.
It's so far ahead.
You want to tell us about what happens next, or bring up anything else, Mr. Jeremy?
Yeah,
I think we go to the United Nations, right?
Yes, absolutely. So we follow Superman to the United Nations, where we see Michael Rosenbaum voicing the nuclear protester outside. We see that J. Allen Carter has somehow survived his incident on Mars and is now a senator who has seemingly got his hands on a copy of Superman 4 and thought that the plot was viable. He wants Superman to rid the Earth of nukes and serve as a one-man global security force, which somehow the United Nations agrees to.
Yes, that is it's so funny. It is the plot of Superman 4, the quest for peace, and I did not connect it until you just said it. That is a really bad movie, with the same shot of Superman just zooming at the screen. Yeah, so this is a little weird to me, and I'm going to say that I think this is only a plot convenience. That this is only, they wanted to do this to set up the reason why the world's armies couldn't help, and it had to be
exactly what it is.
And had to be a Justice League, but it's a little clunky. It's a little convenient, but it's fine. I don't hate it, and especially when you think about the ending about Superman the Animated Series, because the ending of Superman the Animated Series, even though there is and there isn't a continuity with this series, right? Because sometimes they acknowledge it and sometimes they ignore it. Mm-hmm. But the ending of Superman the Animated Series is Superman getting controlled by Darkseid and kind of screwing stuff up and causing shenanigans, and it is weird that. Let me ask you this: how much time do you think has passed since the Superman the Animated Series? What do you think of the time jump is?
I think it's at least 2 years. I think I'm going to go by the 2-year time jump between like the beginning of this episode with them on Mars. I think at least that much time has passed.
All right, fair.
Since the course of the show.
Do you think animated Tim Drake is still with Batman?